So I hope the view is good from back here. And official welcome to your practice. So today we will work a lot with a certain mudra, and we're trying to instill a bit of a sense of being easy with whatever arises. In other words, we're working a little bit with our anxious minds to hopefully calm that down. Now, to begin with, we might use a block as usual. It's very often that I ask you to do that. And we will begin in a seated position. So you might place the block down, a cushion will do as well. And as we come into a reasonably comfortable seated position, I'd ask you to do a few movements that actually make you feel better within the physical body, because it's still early morning hours or early-ish, and for some here it might be much later, but a little bit of movement, such as light twisting and leaning in, or even a circling around your hips might feel good. These are just suggestions. Please move freely at this point. If you have chosen to circle, you might change the direction of your circles. Now we'll try and find a very centered position here. The hands might be resting gently, and you could draw the elbows in a little, so that instead of extended arms and a light forward movement in your shoulders, you're keeping the shoulders easy, the hands are resting comfortably. For that reason of working a little bit with our more anxious minds, I thought a balancing breathing technique might work well. And with that, I thought of starting with Nadi Shodhana, or alternate nostril breathing. If you feel your air passages are blocked right now, and you might just have a little sniff through your nostrils, there will be one that is dominant, and if there is one that is really blocked, you might actually want to skip using the hands on the nostrils to block off, because that would be disturbing the energy where the nostril is blocked. So in that case, you could also visualize, and visualization is sufficient for this practice in general if you preferred. Now, for using your hands with the technique, you might use your ring finger and your thumb. I'm using my right hand usually, and then the index and middle finger, they can rest on your eyebrow center, hover above, or you can fold those into the palm of your hand as well. Finding that easy positioning for your shoulders, the upright seat, and an option here to rest your elbow into the palm of the other hand as an extra support. Take a deep breath in through both of your nostrils and exhaling through both. Closing off your right nostril gently, inhaling deeply through your left. Open your right, close the left, and breathe out the right nostril. Inhaling through the right nostril. Open your left, close the right, and breathe out the left nostril. That was one cycle. We're starting again. Inhaling left. Exhaling right. Inhaling right. Exhaling left. That was our second cycle. Please continue inhaling through the left nostril to start with. Always swapping for the out breath. Inhaling again through that nostril, and again swapping for the out breath. Please continue doing so, whether you're using your hands to close off the nostrils or whether you're visualizing the technique. We're breathing in through one side and out the other. This is here to connect the sides of the brain, to harmonize between the left and right energy channel, and basically freeing up Sushumna Nadi as well. That's our central energy channel. While you continue this breathing technique, breathing in fully and deeply, and the same with your exhalation. And maybe finding the balance between those breaths, in and out breath. Go for one more round. Once you've completed the round, at the end of the exhalation through your left nostril, let your hands relax and observe yourself. From this place, you might lean a little bit back, bring your fingertips down behind, and maybe extending your legs out in front. Unless that is your usual position, you might move around a little bit. I suggest to place your fingertips down as you might sit a little bit elevated. Do flex the feet and see if an extension of your legs feels appropriate. As you then bend your knees again, we've got that habit, let's change the leg in front or come back to a comfortable, evenly balanced seated position. Let's have a first touch upon Pala Mudra. To create it, make a little bowl with your left hand, and I'm not mirroring that currently, and place that bowl just underneath your navel in front of you. Then make a tiny little bowl with your right hand as well. And as if you were cupping, place that on top without touching, so that we look like the people in the famous ads on TV. I do have a feeling that these people did know about the qualities of Pala Mudra when these ads were created. Because from memory, they're about superannuation, and with that, they want to create a message of feeling safe and secure with this company, which could also be an outcome by just holding the mudra. No need to make any changes in your financials. So let's feel into the both hands and the energy that lies between them, while you allow yourself to be settled in your seat. We will hopefully have enough time at the end of our practice to explore this mudra more deeply. Sometimes when we're cupping our hands like this, no matter the actual hand position, but if the palms are facing, it almost feels like we're holding a ball of energy. Let's move the mudra for now. With the breath in, let your upper hand rise up. On the out breath, then come into a side bend where you're reaching with both arms in opposite directions. With your next breath in, as if this was a precious ball of energy that you just enlarged, circle the arms around and exhale to condense the energy just with the other hand on top. On a breath in, let that arm reach up over your head. And on the out breath again, reaching across with both of your arms. Let's swirl that energy ball again. Take your time. This is your breath in. As you're breathing out, condensing the energies. On the inhale, lifting the top arm up over the head. And with the out breath, reaching across to the different sides in the side bend. With the inhale, then let your energy balls swirl. On the breath out, condensing the energy. With the inhale, lifting the top arm overhead. With the out breath, returning into the side bend. We'll do that one more time. So let the energy swirl while you breathe in. Condension at the out breath. Inhaling to lift the upper arm. And exhale for a side bend. Let's inhale and swirl that huge ball of energy and condense it on the out breath. Arm reaching overhead on the inhale. And the last side bend here on the out breath. On the breath in, let the energy swirl a last time. And then condense it again as you breathe out. Let's release our mudra and place the fingertips back down by the sides. You might release the block from underneath. You can always place that block by the side of the mat. It might come in useful again. Once more, let your legs extend out in front of your body. You can place your hands down just by the sides of the hips, the fingers pointing forward. You might allow your feet to point and stick together as you carefully lower down onto your forearms. I sometimes call that a beach pose. I've just snugged my fingertips underneath the lower part of my bottom and the elbows are quite closed in. With the toes pointed, you might start to lift your heart for a gentle fish position. The gaze here could be forward unless your neck is really happy right now. In that case, you might guide your chin up and take the head back. The head here would float at this point in time, and the heart is lifting nevertheless. Take a deep breath in, and then with your out breath, let your elbows spread out so you can land on the head and carefully on your back, removing the arms from underneath and bringing them into a rest. You might now bend your knees and step both feet down, touching on their insides, as well as your knees touching. Find a comfortable position here for your back, which is why I'm wiggling around. Arms could be cactus style and open if you're more in sort of my body, or you could place your fingertips or hands behind the head instead. Now, what is really important is that we're squeezing our legs close. So while you next inhale, let the knees stay touching, rolling them to one side. Then breathe out and pull them into center. With the inhale, roll them over to the other side. With the out breath, pull them back into center, leaving your knees and feet stacked, unchanged, squeezing close. It is just a movement here. So moving away from the idea that the knees have to touch the floor, anything has to be a certain way, just moving your squeezed legs from side to side and using the exhale to draw them back into center. Now this is for your lower back. And when you come into center next, feeling balanced, left and right side, pause. Notice how you're feeling, particularly in the lower back. And you might then choose to go into stage 2 by lifting the feet off the floor. Arms, hands are staying unchanged. Lifting the feet up a little and flexing the ankles. Moving the knees a little away from you so the knees are coming to be stacked over the hips. There's roughly a 90-degree angle for the knees. And if all of that is done and the ankles are flexed, you might see your toes just behind the knees. Now do the same here, squeezing feet and knees together. And as you breathe in, taking the knees over to one side, maintaining your 90 degrees. A breath out to bring them to center. Squeezing your knees tightly, take the knees to the other side, inhaling. Exhaling, pull them back to center. Now, as you continue this movement, your knees aren't parting at all. You can also keep the movement smooth and small to keep the knees close. But maybe checking in the middle each time that your knees are still at 90 degrees, that the toes are still poking out behind your knees. So this movement now for your mid-back. Again, when you're even left and right side, pause in the center. Let your knees drop towards your chest. Your feet gently lower towards your bottom. For the last stage of this back release, I'd ask you to squeeze the knees together again. Leave your feet relatively close to your bottom, your knees quite close to your chest. When you are breathing out now, swing your knees and tuck them up towards the shoulder. And when you're breathing in, let them swing around. With the out breath, tuck them up. So let's keep that flowing for a few breaths. It's now the out breaths where you're twisting and tucking upwards. So I've just changed that simply because we need that little tuck up towards the shoulder. And the out breath here provides us with a little bit more inner strength. So keeping knees together, tucking them up to the shoulder. Once more to each side until you feel balanced. And then you might release your feet down, even wide if you wish, knees falling in, and you might relax your arms so that your spine is restful and you have time to observe through your back. Now, all of this work, a sense of feeling some kind of groundedness. With your feet wide, you might wiggle them a little bit closer. Now, I will sneak my socks off my feet, simply so that I have a bit of grip on the mat. Stepping your feet up towards your buttocks, I've just reached also for the block to keep that directly by my side. And I've lengthened the arms down by the sides, palms touching the floor. Your heels, step them up as close to your bottom as you can, but try not to help them. With the in-breath now, tilt your pelvis, flatten your spine. With the out-breath, squeezing your bottom and lifting the hips up to your liking. On the in-breath, draw the tailbone up towards your knees. And on the out-breath, uncurl the spine back down onto your mat. With the in-breath, a pelvic tilt, the spine is flat. Squeezing your bottom up as you breathe out, bridge. On the inhale, tuck your tail up to your knees, lengthening front body. On the out breath, rolling the spine back down onto the floor. Let's do that again. Inhaling, tilt. Exhaling, squeezing up. Inhale, tail reaches to knees. Exhale, rolling the spine back down onto the mat. Inhaling, tilt the pelvis. Exhaling, squeezing your hips up. Either you continue this very movement or you might choose to grab a block. I would recommend to place that block underneath, flat or halfway up. Do make sure if you are using the block that you're actually placing it on the end of the spine, so the sacrum area, so that all of the other vertebrae are basically hanging free of the block. this height is not necessarily yours. You can always keep it quite low. Arms might rest here by the sides as a support. A suggestion to try out to slide one leg out long. I would also suggest to point the toes of that leg and then feeling into a potential extension across the front of the hip. If that feels good, you might take the same side arm and reach that over the head, stretching from the fingers quite actively down to the toes, taking a deep full breath in this way. And when you're breathing out, sliding your foot back onto the mat and releasing your arm by the side. If you're resting in the bridge, please ignore me and relax. If it's possible for you, you might slide your left leg out and do the same here, pointing out through the toes away from you. Noticing how that feels, not just if you're getting a stretch here, but if you're still okay in your back as well. Option to raise the same side arm over the head and stretching right up there. At the same time, reaching down towards the toes. Deep breath in. And on the out breath, sliding the foot back up while you're releasing your arms down by the sides. Now, please do align your feet again to about hip distance. Squeeze your bottom as you raise the hips up, exhaling. Draw the tail up to your knees as you inhale while you're removing a block. On the out breath, rolling your spine back down onto the mat. Let your feet wiggle out, your knees fall in, the arms roll out, and observe yourself again. So far, we've mainly done a spinal movement. And as some of you might be aware, each of our vertebrae are actually connected to different parts of our bodies. And for that reason, it might be well worth looking after your spinal health. Not that you don't use the spine for other things too. If it feels right for you the way you are right now, you might give your knees a good hug in towards your chest. And maybe rock gently from side to side. And you could also choose to rock yourself into a seated position, or you might just simply roll over onto your side. We will come up into a seat, but we will also come into a standing position. So I'd ask you to slowly find your way up into a standing pose. You might like to stand then at the short front edge of your mat, if that feels right for you. With your feet parallel as usual. Now, while you set yourself up around your feet, I will change your view while facing the camera. I would ask you to re-engage with Pala Mudra. You might start again with your left hand under and your right hand on top. I will mirror that now. So leaving your shoulders relaxed as you stand. Feeling back into the energy that you're holding there within your hands. It might be that you feel almost instantly quite calm. It might take a little bit longer. With your inhalation, let your upper arm lift over the head. And with the out breath, re-engaging into the side bend as you're reaching with both arms in opposite directions. As you breathe in, take this large ball of energy and turn it around. And with the exhale, condensing the energy, maybe softening into your knees. With the inhale, stretching the other arm over the head. And with the out breath, returning into side bend. We'll do one more round to each side. So circle the energy around you. Breathe out to condense and soften into your stance. Inhale, the right arm is reaching up most likely. Out breath, reaching to opposites. Inhaling, swirl this ball of energy. Breathe out to condense. Inhale to lift your arm back up. And out breath for the side bend. Taking a breath in as you swirl the energy a last time. And exhaling to condense it again. Noticing how you are. Maybe closing the eyes for a moment. You might release your arms along the side of the body now. Shift the weight lightly to your left foot. Bringing your right knee up as you breathe in. So a little element of balance. And with the out breath, stepping your foot far back. You might take a breath in to lift both of your arms, straighten your legs. And then take the hands into the heart as you're bending into your front knee. Now, I'm still facing halfway forward, which is okay. My back foot is turned out a little with the heel of the foot. And my front knee is still safe over the ankle joint. If your knee has exceeded the ankle joint like this, please widen your stance or bring the knee a little bit back, whatever is your preference. If your feet are correctly positioned, your knee is safe at the front, pull the feet in a little and take a breath in to extend your arms into warrior two as you might look over your front hand fingertips. I will rest again my back arm, but you may hold both. Notice what you're doing around your shoulders. It's oftentimes more like this when I observe. So there's a potential here to soften the elbows and maintain the strength around your legs. Virabhadrasana 2 or warrior 2. With the next inhalation, lifting both arms back up, the leg might straighten. You could turn your toes to face into the corners. And as you breathe out, bending the back knee, the hands to the heart. Now with the inhale, stretching both arms up, lengthening the legs. On the exhale, bending again into the knee that was bent for your warrior pose. Let's breathe in, reaching both arms up again. Bend into the knee at the back side of the mat. Inhaling, reaching up with both arms. And exhaling, bending back into the front knee. Let your hands rest upon that side. Swivel your feet around and step with support to the front side of the mat, giving the shoulders a shrug back and landing again on both of your feet. While you might feel still grounded through the feet, shift the weight over to your right foot. Take a breath in and raise your left knee for a mini balance. Then, almost in slow motion, step the foot back, ground it. As you breathe in, extend your legs, reach both arms up over the head. And while you breathe out, to center the hands at the heart, bring a bend into the right knee. Now we're having another look about our position. The back heel further out than the toes. The front toes pointing forward and the knee is aligned with that. If you find this, take a breath in and let your arms reach out shoulder height. Drishti, front hand fingertips are slightly beyond. You can rest your arm down if you have any issues, of course, which is why I do that. But if your arms are happily floating in the air, maybe slightly challenged, you could bring some softness into your shoulders. Keep your feet active as they might draw lightly in towards each other, holding you strong in your warrior two. With the next inhale, straighten the legs, reach your arms back up, swivel your feet to the corners of the mat, and bend into the back knee as you're exhaling. Now I will give you the option of also raising the sole of the opposite foot. With the inhale, reach both arms up, grounding your feet. With the exhale, sink into the other side. Foot might be away from the ground. Inhaling, ground the foot, reach both arms up, lengthen your legs. Exhaling, sinking back to the back side of the mat. And you can go here as deep as you wish. On the inhale, reaching up. On the exhale, sinking in. Inhaling, lift. Last round. Breath out, sinking to the back side of your mat. The inhale to reach up. And the last time to the front side of the mat. Let your hand come to your thigh, swivel your feet around, and then step the foot with help to the front. Give the shoulders a shrug and find mountain pose. Maybe an opportunity to close your eyes for a little moment. Starting to think about the feet, how they're grounded. If there's any necessity to move, please do. Give some sense of softness through your knees. Feel the pelvis floating with ease. And get a sense of openness through the front of your shoulders. Then bring your attention to your breath. Let it flow down into the abdomen. As you breathe down into your belly, see if you can expand the breath all the way up towards your collarbones. And then maybe breathing out from there as well as you're releasing. As we find ourselves here, take one deep breath. Open your arms, heart, throat, and take a breath out to place the hands upon your hips. We'll have a very similar approach, but you can face the short side of the mat now. As we shift the weight, the right knee might be lifting. And then stepping the foot back. Just about a meter where you can comfortably land and out to hip distance. I usually widen my stance a little bit here at the front, asking you to bring a bend into the front knee and do the same here for Warrior One that you've done in Warrior Two, the knee directly over the ankle joint, adjusting your stance if need be. Feeling the feet pulling in a little to center around your pelvis. Allowing now your left hand to come in front underneath your navel. And placing the right hand on top back into variation of Pala Mudra. As you let your shoulders be easy, you might even try and hold your posture strong with the eyes closed. We'll only go for one side bend here. And while you breathe in, the upper arm might reach up over the head. On the breath out, go into the side bend to hold. If it's possible, your joints are okay with that, keep grounding through the back foot in particular, and maybe start looking down over your shoulder towards the ground. With the inhale, then take your energy ball and lift it all the way up over your head. Front leg might straighten here. On the out breath, draw the hands down the midline, touch them upon your thigh. If you like a block here, please use. Start to press down into the ball of the front foot as you slide the hands down the leg. You can stay here in a half lift, or you can fold all the way down towards your knee if you wish. Hands can stay resting upon the leg or might touch down either side of your front foot. While I can't see that from here, I would ask you to keep the pressure down into the ball of your front foot to keep your pelvis parallel. If you are unsure around your pelvis, if your stance is a bit narrow, you might feel that the front side of the hip is dropping down. The same when there's a lack of a groundedness through the front foot. So just get a feel what changes when you apply certain pressure into the mat. With your next breath in, bring a bend into the front knee. Let your hands be down on the floor and step the foot forward. And let yourself hang down into Uttanasana or a standing forward bend. We'll spend a moment here. If your arms are feeling excessively short, the block might come in handy here as you bow down to release the upper body. If your hands are touching down on the surface, you might also choose to ever so slightly rock forward and back over the feet and notice how that impacts the forward bend. If not beneficial for you, please hold still. Next time you land more leaning forward, hold. Have your knees in a light bend, at least, or a deep one, and breathe out to uncurl your spine. Take a lift of your shoulders on the in-breath and shrug them down as you breathe out. So now we're standing back, front side of the mat, mountain pose. Hands, as you breathe in, can open out once more, lifting heart, throat. On the exhale, place the hands upon your hips. Shifting the weight lightly to the right, mini balance as you raise your left knee, breathing in. On the out breath, extending the leg back, landing the foot down, maintaining again a hip distance stance and a soft bend into the front knee. So back toes diagonally forward, hips completely forward. Little pull here of your feet. As we want to change sides, I'm thinking about it. So I think it's the right hand below, the left hand above. Let's go with that. Shrug the shoulders down, cupping your hands, pulling in your feet to ground. With the in-breath, extending the arm up. And with the out-breath, entering into a side bend. While I'm now sure it's the right side, if it's possible for you, deeply ground through the back foot into the mat. Feels too challenging around your joints, lift the heel instead. You might look down over your right hand shoulder while you're reaching actively across with your arms in opposite directions. With a breath in, you might straighten your arms, take your energy ball and lift it up over the head. Bringing hands to join as you let your hands land upon the thigh. A block might be useful here. Hands can slide down the leg, maybe resting to a block, maybe resting to the leg or either side of the front foot as you lower your nose towards the knee or your pyramid shape. So the same here, if your stance is hip distance, there's room for the pelvis to be in balance. If you have a feeling the front hip is dropping, push more into the ball of your front foot to adjust that. The rest is your breath that is taking you deeper here. With the next breath in, take a bend into the front knee, take your back foot, step it next to the front foot and bow back down into your forward fold. You might now have a better feeling for a forward bend and how that sits within your body today. We will find a way of lowering to the mat. If you like a little squat in between, you could lift the heels and squat yourself down. If you want to sit down differently, feel free to do that too. We're extending the legs out the front, and I suggest to sit on the mat with the feet kind of aligning with the front side of the mat. You could take the block and pop that under, but I need a little bit less. So the block oftentimes feels as if my knees are hanging through. If I use a folded blanket or rolled up mat, and that feeling is no longer there. So I feel much more supported and easier to keep the knees bent as well. So sit a little bit back on your grounded seat, taking a bend into your right knee first, and maybe placing the right foot to the inside of the leg, if it fits quite high up the inner thigh. With your fingers down, lift the straight side, pull it a little back, bend the knee, flex the foot, coming into tall seated position, inhaling. On the exhale, starting to lean forward, then the arms might join in, and maybe the head is lowering. Please feel free to keep the head up if your blood pressure is challenged or you're feeling easily dizzy. Keep the flexion here in the foot, and then let yourself surrender to the forward bend. As you might focus, instead of bending forward, on a longer calming exhalation. The out breath oftentimes much easier than the in breath, and yet the in breath is triggered by the out breath. So if you're feeling a little bit stressed, why not lengthen your out breath there too? With the next inhalation, lifting a little bit out of the pose for lengthen the spine, and you might walk or slide your hands back to an upright seated position. As you extend the right leg back out, you might choose the same position for the left leg as you bend the knee, lifting through the straight side and pulling the leg a little back. Bending through the knee that you're facing, flexing through the foot, centering yourself in your seat, a breath in. With the out breath, leaning forward again, leaning directly from the hip. Let the hands adjust to your new positioning, and an option to also lower the head towards the knee. If you come into this pose with the knee bent and you're feeling an extension through the back leg, you're welcome to just stay there, of course. Straightening of the leg is an option, but only if it's free of any harm or strong discomfort for you. Again, let your out breath guide you. Rather than thinking about where am I going next, or where do I need to be, find yourself here just breathing out and observing then what is happening. Doesn't mean we're passive, we're still breathing actively and got our focal point for the practice. You might ground your hands, lift your spine out, breathing in, and then you might walk the hands back, coming into a seated position where you could choose to lengthen both legs out. I'm deliberately leaving us some time on the mat and to add a meditation to the end of our practice today. So coming off the rolled up mat or seated support, please make sure that you've got your block sitting right here by your side. As you ground your hands back down by the sides, fingertips are pointing forward. Flexion through the feet to begin with. Inhaling, Dandasana, active flexion of the feet, active grounding of the hands, right posture. With your out breath, then start to round your spine. As you lean back, landing on the forearms again, but then let your elbows spread out and lower all the way onto your mat. Stepping your feet back onto the ground, making sure that your block is still within reach, and walking your feet back up to the buttocks. We've been here before. The feet are hip distance, so the knees, the toes are pointing forward, the arms are by the sides, the palms touching the ground. With your next in-breath, tilt your pelvis so your spine flattens onto the mat. Then squeeze your buttocks as you breathe out to raise the hips. And breathe in to draw your tailbone up towards your knees. You can then take the block and place that underneath the sacrum. So same options here, the block flat or the block halfway up. If any of you insist and are comfortable with the block all the way up, why not? So if your block is anything but flat on the ground, you might keep a hold here of the block underneath for stability reasons. You might then carefully lift one foot after the other away from the block. And if the block isn't quite right now, step the feet back down, shuffle it into the correct position, then do the same again. You might from here extend your legs towards the ceiling for our inversion today. So it isn't important, the hips are elevated, nevertheless, it's not important how high the hips are. What might have some importance to you is the positioning of the block. Mine is solid, so I can relax my arms. And you may do the same if you feel safe on the block, if the block is grounded here and you feel the same. You could then actively point your feet for a little while. If any of you have just gone into a shoulder stand, if that is within your practice, that might be an alternative for you. Now let's actively flex the feet as you push your heels up. Maybe a light overextension through the back of the legs while your toes are pulling in towards the body. And then maybe pushing just the balls of the feet up, letting your toes spread out wide, your legs actively together, holding the feet flointed and exploring the sensations that may arise through that positioning. Now relax your feet. Relax and soften into the legs and maybe even let them gently drift apart. And take a note how it feels when the legs are just relaxed up there in the air. It is quite beneficial, at least regularly, to put your legs up somewhere. Whether this is an inversion like this here, or whether you have your knees bent and let's say rest them to the seat of your couch. There's a great benefit in reversing the flow within. If you like and your block isn't quite that solid, please reach back for your block. As we exit the shape, you might bend your knees back into the chest, lower your feet towards your bottom. And you could then carefully step one foot down and then the other. Deliberately plant your feet back parallel and hip distance. And then squeeze your bottom and lift it off the block. Remove the block, draw the tail up towards your knees, lengthen your arms along the side of your body and control the movement down as you're rolling through the spine back onto your mat. If it's available to you, please extend both legs out long. Tuck your elbows in, lift up onto your forearms, and take a block and place that squared, if that's all right towards the lower part of your rib cage. Now, this will be a fish posture, so you could, if your neck allows you to, draw the head back. If you prefer that supported, stay right here, resting over the block, forearms gently down, chin tucked in. We'll all point our feet as we look forward towards the toes, or some of you would have surrendered over the block. Both variations fine. Let's hold active legs, relaxed upper body, deep breathing. While this seems a fairly vulnerable position, there's still some strength down the legs to support us. One more breath. You could then relax the tension in the legs, even step a foot down, gently rolling your hips so you can sneak your fingers under. Tuck the elbows back in, lengthen both legs out. Draw the chin in if the head was dropped back. Lift away from the mat, removing your block and releasing back down onto the floor. Let everything go for now, as if you were ready for Shavasana, which you might be. Take one breath here and assess whether it is the case. If it is not, follow your intuition, as you might move a little bit, stretch, give the knees another hug as you prepare yourself for relaxation. Please do take time to gather what is required for you. Maybe leaving a bolster underneath your knees. And as you come to lie down on your backs, you can also choose to close your eyes. Maybe allowing everything just to fall away from you. Tapping into a quiet space. As you notice the body again. Noticing the amount of energy that is still there and the quality of this energy. I have taken a card for us today. It is from the Namaste card deck. It's called A Blessed Season. Each season of your life is a gathering of precious moments. Each one has its purpose, unique beauty, challenges, and blessings. Everything is always unfolding in accordance with the divine will of your soul. All is a blessing and forever blessed. As we have been working with Hala Mudra, these words might resonate with you. That all times are blessed. And that you can rest in Shavasana at the end of your practice, knowing that if you are challenged, there's some blessing within that too. For the next few minutes, you might simply follow the flow of your breath. Enjoy distractions as you recognize them. Take them as a blessing and move back on with your breath. So you appreciate this moment of restfulness. You can decide if you would like to practice a meditation seated to use the mudra, or if the seat might be challenging for you and you would prefer to visualize the mudra while keeping that comfortable position on your back. Once you have decided, and if you do choose to sit, please move your body a little, just enough to motivate you to come into a seated position. And then taking your time to get there with as least disturbance as is possible. If you are seated with me, and I won't mirror here, place the left hand underneath your navel in front of you, like a bowl. And the second bowl, that is your right hand, comes over the top. Give the shoulders a little movement so they're comfortable. Maybe snap the elbows a little bit into the sides for gentle support. Eyes would be closed here, or again, a steady gazing point somewhere down in front of you, so the eyes semi-shut. Starting to connect with the sensations in your hands again. Just a simple, natural flow of breath to attune to all the feelings that might come, instilling a sense of comfort and ease, as if entering your own inner sanctuary of tranquility. Take time to rest within this inner sanctuary, simply following the rhythmic rise and fall of your abdominal breathing, allowing you to relax more completely. To relax even more deeply, you will invite each area of your body into your inner sanctuary. Begin by inviting your legs and feet into your sanctuary of tranquility, taking several breaths to allow these areas to relax completely. Now welcome your pelvis, abdomen, and low back into your sanctuary. Taking some time to sense these areas gently expanding and relaxing in synchrony with your soft, rhythmic breathing. For the next few breaths, Allow your chest and upper back to be bathed in absolute tranquility, naturally experiencing greater lightness and ease throughout these areas of your body. Now invite your shoulders, arms, hands, and fingers into your sanctuary, allowing them to relax completely. Your neck and head now enter and rest within your sanctuary of tranquility, allowing your eyes, ears, mouth, and jaw to soften and relax completely. Now allow your entire being to rest within your inner sanctuary, taking several breaths to experience absolute tranquility. Affirm your complete peace as you repeat the following 3 times after me, aloud or silently. Resting within my inner sanctuary, I experience absolute tranquility. Resting within my inner sanctuary, I experience absolute tranquility. Resting within my inner sanctuary, I experience absolute tranquility. Slowly release the gesture, resting your hands down to experience complete rest. You might like to now join the palms of your hands together in front of your chest, maybe the thumbs lightly touching the sternum. We will remain peaceful as we finish this practice with 1 chant of Om followed by 3 chanties for peace. Let's begin with an in-breath together now. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. The gentle bow from our tranquil